Seriously impaired, sick, had fallen asleep, or any of the above. And I called 911. The first 911 operator that I got was horrific. I called another, and she was a little better. And I was describing the truck. I was describing his behavior, and I even had gotten the tag number. So I gave them the tag number, and then I pulled up beside a United States Park police officer who I know had to be, or who I assumed was on his way home from his offices somewhere here in the Washington, D.C. area. I now was sort of headed out 210 Indian Head Highway, and I pulled up beside him. I honked. I had him to put the window down. I told him about this erratic driver. He slowed down, let the driver get up near him. He then started to follow the driver, who was driving erratically still, and the guy pulled off at Fort Washington Road in Fort Washington, Maryland. The cop pulled off behind him, put his lights on, pulled him over actually in a gas station parking lot, and before long he was in handcuffs. And you know, I just kind of heard some voices in my head saying snitch. And I heard myself saying, you damn right. Here's a guy that is putting people's lives in danger. And so you damn right I called. I gave his tag number, and I'm glad he was picked up and taken off of the street. I said this subject is near and dear to my heart, this subject matter. I want to share a personal story. I want to share a personal tragedy. And I'm going to call it right now Dinah's story. I have a niece named Dinah. And on November the 14th, 2011, she was traveling on one of the main arteries here in the Washington, D.C. area, Branch Avenue, Route 5. And she saw, on November the 14th, 2011, someone driving in a very erratic fashion. So much so that she called 911. And she was explaining over the course of several miles on the highway how dangerous this person was that was in front of her, how erratically he was driving, and that she thought that he was putting, people's lives in danger. They proceeded south until ultimately they got to 301. And for those of you in the local area, you know what I'm talking about. And then Dinah told the 911 operator, please get get someone here as fast as you can, please. And then on the video, on the audio of the 911 call, one can hear Dinah exclaim, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the driver had driven off of the highway and smashed into a pedestrian who was far away from the highway in what was the walking area. Now, she stopped and another couple of cars stopped, just in horror, having seen a body go flying through the air. They went down to see if there was anything in any kind of way that they could help the person that was hit by this maniac, drunk driving, drug-induced fool. And when they turned the body over, it was Dinah's brother. It was her brother. I'm talking blood brother. It was Dinah's brother's Kent, my nephew. Now I sit here 16 months later, and I want to tell you that this killer has not even gone to court yet. This killer, who has numerous other charges, other drunk driving charges, other just arrests, repeated arrest after arrest after arrest. This person that killed this drunken person that killed my nephew has yet to even go to court. And so you have the tragedy. You have the tragedy of a family grieving over a death. And I want to tell you something, because it in part ties in to what I'm going to be talking about in the second hour in a roundabout way. And that is, for those of you that are viewing this program, you will see the jersey of the Washington's, one of the favorite pro football players in Washington history, Sean Taylor. Kent's family all came to the funeral in the jersey of Sean Taylor, in the Washington football team jersey. So you endure the horrific tragedy of being told that, you know, a brother, a son is killed, and you suffer through the process of a 16-month wait, and there is still, the killer is still not brought to justice. So I wanted to share that story with you. It's been a difficult period for all of us to deal with, because we've got a holiday coming up. We've got a special day coming up. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. And, you know, a lot of people like to do a lot of drinking on the holidays. And, you know, God bless you. God bless you. Drink all you like. Just don't drive. When I did a radio show 30 years ago, I just want everybody to understand this is not some Johnny-come-lately, you know, attitude that I have. When I had a radio show 30 years ago, I was an advocate for very harsh penalties for drunk and impaired driving. No mercy. No mercy. You get up behind a wheel of a car and you're drunk or you're drug impaired, it is like having a pistol and waving it around with your eyes closed. And victims are in your path because you don't know what you're doing. And if you want to take the liberty to drink and then drive and be in a position of being impaired where you can take body, limb, or life, no mercy. Put you in jail and throw away the key. You're no different. You're no different than someone with a pistol in your hand that's killing people. So that is my very clear position on drunk driving. Now, I have as my guest in the first hour today a gentleman named Kurt Erick. Kurt is the Washington Regional Alcohol Program he is with the organization, Washington Regional Alcohol Program, better known as Sober Ride. Sober Ride is offering from 4 p.m. tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, March the 17th, until 4 a.m. the following morning, a free taxi ride from any bar, and I'll let him really get into this. But I want to certainly, Kurt, welcome you to the Rock Newman Show. I want to commend you for the work that you all do. And we are going to take a quick break before you actually come on. But I want you guys to stay tuned because there's some very pertinent information I want to share with you on this subject matter when we come back after these brief messages. I have with me as my guest Kurt Erickson from the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, better known as Sober Ride. Kurt, welcome to the program.
Rock, Thanks for having us on, and congratulations on the new show.
Oh, man, I'm having a whole bunch of fun. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and got an opportunity here at WEAC Radio, and it's going great. It's been very well received, and thank you so much again for joining us. Let me ask you, you heard, I obviously have a lot of passion about this subject. I've had it for a very long time. You and your organization provide this, I think, invaluable service. I think it is, I say invaluable because I think it is a service that saves lives. When did it originate? And tell us the impetus for you all putting this in place.
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm going to personalize the issue better than you did with Dinah's story. I mean, that's you brought it home, and you also brought home the role that anybody can do, even if they have every confidence in their own ability not to drink and drive. It doesn't extend, unfortunately, to the other driver. So the ability to report drunk drivers, which we can talk about later by calling 911 in the district, is key. And we all need to do that because the sad reality is that there are more drunk drivers than there are men and women in uniform looking for them. That's the reality. So an extra set of eyes is key. Sober Ride was started by the nonprofit Washington Regional Alcohol Program about 20 years ago, in realizing that, throughout the year we do programs in area high schools in the district, Maryland and Virginia. We do area programs and workplaces. Traffic crashes are still the #1 killer of U.S. employees. We're busy in the D.C. Council. We're busy in Annapolis. We're busy in Richmond trying to toughen penalties for drunk driving. But we realize that as good as those programs are and those efforts are, you still need to have some safety valve to those high-risk, high-alcohol consumption holidays, and you already captured St. Patrick's Day as one of them, and you're absolutely right. You still need to have some safety valve, and that's the case where we have a free cab ride service that's going to be in operation for 12 hours starting tomorrow afternoon.
When you say that you've been with the D.C. Council and out in Annapolis and in Virginia trying to impact safety laws in those jurisdictions, what kind of, what are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to make better? What do we need? What can we all get? What kind of effort can we get behind as the citizens whose lives are at risk for these people that go out there? And I don't want to name call, but I'm not far away from it because it's an absurdity in this society that puts us, again, all in a very dangerous predicament.
Well, it's an absurdity, and you're right, and it's an insensitivity. The fact of the matter is that to this day, almost a third, it's 31% of all traffic crashes to this day happening in this country are caused by drunk drivers. It's an unacceptable number. This is a 100% preventable crime. I mean, this doesn't have environmental factors. Every single drunk driving arrest, crash, injury, fatality is 100% preventable. We should be able to lick this problem. What we try to do in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia and our advocacy efforts is to try to champion meaningful penalties. For instance, in the district just back on August 1st of last year, all the penalties, the fines and the jail time all went up. Maximum penalties all went up in the district. If you're convicted of driving at a high blood alcohol concentration level now in the district, you're looking, it used to be 5 days incarceration, now you're looking at a mandatory 10 days incarceration. God forbid you should be arrested for a DUI and have a child in the car. Right now in the district, if you're convicted of that, in addition to all the other penalties you're going to have a mandatory 5 days incarceration. So it's those type of penalties, but it's also using some technology and thinking outside the box. For instance, in Virginia, on July 1st of last year, if you're convicted in that state of drunk driving, and it doesn't matter if it's your first, 31st offense, it doesn't matter your BAC level, you're going to have to get one of those in-car breathalyzers installed in your car, an ignition interlock device that will prevent you from ever starting your car if it senses alcohol on your breath.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I might be the most non-technical human being on the planet. So there is a device.
Yeah, it's actually hardwired to your ignition, and it's pretty sophisticated these days with fuel cell technology, by which the person that gets sentenced to it, for instance, in Virginia, all offenders get sentenced to it, and they're going to have it for a minimum of 6 months. In Maryland, if you're convicted of a DUI and it's a repeat offense, as you mentioned earlier, or if you're a high BAC offender or if you're a youth offender, you're going to have this device in your car. And basically what it does is you go out to your car and you have to blow into a device. If it senses any alcohol in your car's not starting, period. But let's say your car does start and you are satisfactory in terms of it reading your breath. It's going to ask you to retest somewhere down the line. It's not going to surmise that it was you breathing into it. Maybe somebody else breathed into it for you. And if it senses alcohol as it asks you on what's called a rolling retest, it's going to flash the lights. It's going to alternate the horn sound to draw attention to your vehicle, because now, kind of what your story was earlier about calling a 911 about reporting a drunk driver, this would draw attention to that would-be drunk driver for law enforcement.
Let me ask you this. Is that a large expense to have placed in a car, and is the owner of the obviously the owner of the car is responsible for
Yeah, that's a great question. This is 100% offender paid. So you're talking about maybe $200 to $300 to install the device, and then roughly $60 to $80 a month to maintain the device. But break that down on what somebody normally would spend for alcohol. They're paying for it. It's not taxes. It's not other persons. It's not the taxpayers paying for it. It's actually the offender paid.
You know what? I'm certainly not a proponent of too much government regulation or intrusion into our lives necessarily, but when you talk about a third of all of fatalities on the road are as a result of drunk driving, has there been consideration to installing this kind of an apparatus in cars just across the board?
There is some thought of that. I know the groups, some of the groups like MAD and others are looking at the possibility of that in the future through various technology, including even transdermal, where it would actually read your BAC level through skin sensitivity on the steering wheel or on your armrest of your car, which would actually read it.
BAC is blood.
BAC is blood alcohol concentration, meaning that the proportion of alcohol in your bloodstream, and that the average the limit by which to be arrested for drunk driving in all 50 U.S. states plus the District of Columbia is .08. So there is thought of that maybe at some point in the future. Right now, what we're trying to champion is Virginia right now is one of 17 states that requires an ignition interlock device for all DUI offenders. Maryland requires it for super drunk drivers, people that are driving at a .15 or twice the legal limit. If you're a repeat offender, if you've had more than one DUI within 5 years, or if you're a youth offender, you're going to have this device in your car. The district's not quite there yet, and in fact, the majority of states aren't quite there yet, but it's going to be happening.
Well, from these studios, we certainly want to support your efforts. Let's go to the call line. We have a call in and one in backup. John, I think, from Waldorf, Maryland.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm just calling now. Bob, this is Johnny. Just calling to put a shout out to my brother, Eugene Newman, today.
And Johnny is referring to his brother Kent. Johnny, thank you so much. As you know, we've sort of all struggled through this, and Kirk Erickson, who is here in studio with us, certainly is sharing a wealth of information, and we'll continue to fight the struggle and try to make the streets safer. This is one of Kent's siblings who has had to endure the tragedy that I talked about. That was, Dinah's story. It's not just Dinah's story. It's a family's story, and much too unfortunately, where I can personalize this because this is a part of my family. Their families all over are impacted like this. Johnny, I would like to just simply ask you. You're the younger brother in the family, and Lord knows this is folks out there in radio and TV live streaming land. This is very unrehearsed. Johnny, can you explain how you felt when you heard that your brother had been killed by a drunk driver?
There's no words to describe it. Oh, there's no words to describe it at all. I mean, even as I sat here and talked to you about it, I get kind of emotional, a little choked up. But it's just a great loss when you have somebody that enjoyed life the way he did, through no matter what circumstances. He always kept an upbeat attitude, a continue on type fight type guy. He never gave up. Just everybody loved him, and we still do. And you hate to think of what the family is going through. That the young man, because we forgive, but we don't forget. We lost somebody, and that family that has the young man that was doing the driving. you know, a loss to his family as well. So there's a lose-lose situation here. But there's just no words to describe it. I got, you know, a pretty large family, and it was very well felt, this loss with my brother.
And I think, you know, part of the grief is just the senselessness. Kurt,
Yeah.
the senselessness, if it's a word, the avoidability of it. You know, just the tragedy of how it's so avoidable. Johnny, thank you so very much for calling in this morning.
Thank you.
It does underscore the fact that a third of drunk driving victims, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, are unintended victims, are non-intoxicated drivers, non-intoxicated passengers, non-intoxicated pedestrians. And you've got that case right here, a non-intoxicated pedestrian. And it's just so random. In fact, further that, NHTSA also says that at one point in Americans' lives, 1/3 of U.S. residents will be directly impacted from drunk driving at one point in their life. So if you've got neighbors to your left and your right, step out your front door. It's going to be your neighbor to your left, your neighbor to your right, or it's going to be you. That's how random it is.
You know, I had hesitation about dealing with a subject matter that ultimately I would attempt to drive home by personalizing it to such degree. I've sort of struggled with that as to whether or not that's good radio, whether or not that's good television. But at the end of the day, you know, if I ultimately made a decision that perhaps if folks understand my story, and, you know, I'm the uncle, and I'm have been, you know, traveled around the globe and sort of somewhat removed, but to bring in the live voices of those who suffer as a result of this madness.
But I think you also personify the randomness of this. I mean, you have every confidence in your own ability not to drink and drive. It probably extended to both your niece and nephew. They're all doing the right thing, but nonetheless, here you have one less of those persons on the planet right now because of the randomness of drunk driving.
I'll share something else with my audience that, how would you really know? I'll share it with you, except for those people who know me. My father was an alcoholic, and I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life. Breaking news on the Rock Newman Show. I've never had a drink of wine, whiskey, beer. I've never had alcohol of any type whatsoever. One time when I was trying to be grown and get with this real pretty older lady in my teenage years, I drew on a weed because she told me the only way I could get there was if I smoked a joint with her. I sucked on that thing for a second and started coughing, man. My eyes bulged up. So that's my only brush, even with drugs. We have another call on the line, I understand. It is Renee. Hello. Welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Hi, Uncle Rock. How are you?
I am very good.
I wanted to say thank you for bringing this to light. It's still kind of emotional for me, but I want to say thank you.
What are your feelings now as you even, you know, call into the program? What are you feeling? Are you? Well, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. Tell me what you're feeling.
The hurt and the loss is still fresh, even though, like you said, it's been 16 months. The guy's still walking free, and my brother's not here. It's just, the loss is just unbearable. Every day when I'm driving to work, and I see someone walking, knowing that that's what my brother loved doing, I just look back in my rearview mirror sometimes, and I'm thinking that should be him. But it's not.
Thank you for calling in, Renee.
Thank you.
Kurt, what is your experience with the legal authorities? You know, it just so happens that in the jurisdiction where this gentleman would be adjudicated, the people who are in charge are not necessarily strangers to me. I mean, they've communicated, but they've just told us, and you've had to endure what is the just slow grinding clock of justice in a case like this. You're working with this kind of program. Are you advocating more in any way to have justice brought to bear more swiftly?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the adjudication process. As you mentioned, I was just looking at the Maryland guidelines for a DUI, but in this case, it may be somebody charged by the state's attorney's office with DUI manslaughter, which would seem to be warranted, and at least what I've heard about the case. But, the fines and the penalties and the court costs are all there. Maryland and D.C. and Virginia legislators, to a certain extent, have put a fair amount of penalties on the books. What they are reliant now is, and what we're relying on now, is to take this effort from the State House to the courthouse and to make sure that these are appropriately adjudicated, so people are getting the appropriate sentence. I mean, for a DUI in this area, even if it's your first time offense, and it doesn't matter where you're D.C. and Maryland, on average, your fines can be, your first offense is a fine of up to $2,500, up to a year in jail, and having your license taken away for a year. Does that happen all the time? No. Is there an insensitivity because it doesn't happen all the time? There's no question. And like I said, even to this day, when you still have 31% of all traffic fatalities caused by drunk drivers, this is far too many. This is 2013, and we're still losing, a third of our of persons on highway crashes, as a result of alcohol-impaired traffic fatalities. The losses that you've heard from your callers today, not to magnify that, is the fact that that's the same loss that 83 Washington area residents experience every single year, as that's the number of persons that are killed in these 100% preventable crashes just in the greater Washington area on an annual basis, 83 persons.
To voice your opinion, to share your story, call us here at the Rock Newman Show. The telephone number 202-889-9797. Kurt, tell us what you expect the volume. Do you have any anticipation, projection? Have you projected what the volume is going to be on a day like St. Patrick's?
Oh, that's a good question.
You have that 12-hour period where you're offering free rides. And what shocked me is you guys are offering free rides. Folks, listen out here. This is important. You can save a life and save yourself grief and tragedy. Listen to these words. You can call a telephone number tomorrow starting at 4 p.m. until 4 a.m. Monday morning. The telephone number is 1-800-200-TAXI. And for those of you who don't know how to correlate the telephone number with the spelling of taxi, T is the 8, A is the 2. You see, I got to look down at the paper because I don't know this either. 8 is 2, TAXI, 8294. 1-800-200-8294. What do you expect your volume to be?
That's a good question. Believe it or not, this is a very weather-dependent service, and it's going to actually probably rain tomorrow. That said, the D.C. St. Patrick's Day Parade is actually on St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes that doesn't always work out. So you're going to have an increased number of people that are coming into the city that hopefully may utilize this program. On average, for the last 5 years, and we do this program on various holidays, St. Patrick's being one of 4 of them, we've averaged about 460 riders every time that we've done this. Last St. Patrick's Day, which was a beautiful day, it was a Saturday, we had a record number of people utilize this program rather than driving home, possibly impaired. We had 606 people do the right thing and use this program last year. If you divide that by the 12 hours that we did it, it translates to the removal of a would-be drunk driver off of greater Washington area roadways every 71 seconds. It wouldn't surprise me to have similar ridership tomorrow.
And maybe after this program, even more.
Maybe even, I hope so. The fact of the matter is, you just put it well. I don't know how much more we can convenience the would-be drunk driver. We've got a free number, 1-800-200-TAXI. If you're an AT&T wireless user, you can call pound RAP. RAP stands for the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, which is the charity behind the Sober Ride program. We are not offering this just till midnight. We actually offer this till 4 a.m., and we pay up to a $30 fare. The average fare for this is $26, $27. So I'm not too sure what else we can possibly do to convenience the would-be drunk driver, but the program is out there to be used, and I hope that it does indeed get used tomorrow.
I would like for something that Kurt just said to resonate. I want to repeat. I actually was going to make the point earlier that not only are they offering you a ride, let's say from if you're in Washington, D.C., from Georgetown to Capitol Hill, you know, that might be a $10 or $12 ride or something like that. But folks, the reason I said earlier, listen, 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 you can save lives and you can save yourself the grief of having to go through this is it's up to a $30 cab ride.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
far.
That's downtown Washington, D.C. to National Harbor and to many other places in the suburbs. So this is a luxury and a convenience, and more importantly, it is something that saves lives. Please, you listen, pay attention, and if you know family or friends that are going out, please, please, please communicate with them that this service is available and it can save lives. We'll be right back after these broadcast messages. We are wrapping up this hour talking about the subject of drunk driving and sort of a personal tragedy that my family has experienced. My heart goes out to any of you who have had this kind of tragedy that you've had to endure. Just this week, as a father, I understand, was pushing his daughter across the road on St. Barnabas Road. They were struck by someone. I don't know all the circumstances of that, but I did just get information that the 1-year-old who was in the stroller didn't make it. And so, folks, you know, I want to just repeat this again. In this metropolitan region, you have the luxury of an organization that is providing a safe way for you to get home, is providing a way to diminish the number of fatalities, the accidents and tragedies by those of you who want to go out and drink. Hey man, no one likes to have a good time more than I do, and God bless you. Go do what you do. Go, you know, get with Mary, drink and have food and fun and all of that. But allow Sober Ride. The Washington Regional Alcohol Program is providing for you a ride home if you should happen to get a little too many, if you taste a little too much. The number to call is 1-800-200-TAXI. That's 1-800-200-8294. Kurt Erickson has been my guest for this hour. And Kurt, I had told you I only wanted 15 or 20 minutes, but really thank you so much for staying the entire hour. Can you please tell us, we broadcast throughout the metropolitan Washington area. Specifically, what areas do you cover?
Yep. The Sober Ride program, which is, like I said, been around since 1993, over 57,000 Washington area residents have utilized it in its last 20 years. We offer this program in Montgomery and Prince George's County in Maryland, throughout the District of Columbia, and then in Northern Virginia in Arlington, Fairfax, Eastern Loudoun, and Prince William. That just simply means that we contract 9 different cab companies to pull off this service in those areas. So if you're in Rockville, but you're coming back to the district, we're going to dispatch Barwood Cab, the famous light blue cabs there. Conversely, if you're in the district, you're going back to Rockville, we're going to do Yellow Cab of D.C. to take you from the district to Rockville. So it's when you think about it, with 9 different cab companies representing thousands of cabs, it's one of the larger designated driver armies in the area, if not the East Coast. They're going to be pulling the service off tomorrow. Other than that, the restrictions are you have to be of legal drinking age to utilize the program. D.C., Maryland, Virginia, that's 21. We pay up to a $30 fare, but as we already said, the average fare is $26 to $27, and that you have to call that number. You can't simply wave down a Sober Ride. You actually have to call that central number. Again, it's 1-800-200-TAXI or pound RAP. Again, RAP stands for the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, which is the charity that actually puts this program on.
And you can't be sitting at home drunk and call them to take you downtown to get more drunk. You can't do that.
You know what? We get a number of those calls, and we will get them tomorrow. It'll either be that or people that will be scheduling their inebriation going, I know I will need your program at 2 a.m., which really defeats this. We really want people to think ahead, plan ahead, designate a driver, use a cab, use Metro. But if you get into a pinch, here's a program, here's a safety net, or as we said earlier, a safety valve, that'll take you home, and it will take you home for free up to $30. And if your fare is $40, as an example, if you're going a really long distance, we'll still pay for the first 30. You're simply going to be on the hook for the remaining 10.
Let me ask you, you said you must be, so 21 is the legal drinking
Correct.
age. Okay. So if a night, because my question really was if a 19-year-old is at a bar and has gotten drunk, but they're not supposed to. They
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to transport them home. Now that said, and people complain about that, going, well, don't you think 19-year-olds are going to? Of course we think 19-year-olds are going to drink, and that's why we spend the other 90% of the year trying to do programs in area schools, trying to prevent drunk driving through education programs. We're just not interested in subsidizing their transportation home, and nothing that we do prevents them from getting their own cab home, if that's the case. It's just that we have a policy that we're going to prevent ourselves from subsidizing their transport.
Do you do any work with the bars, the bar associations, or anything like that to try to have them to have prevention?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you look at any of our materials, you'll see that we have alcohol and hospitality industry sponsors, Anheuser-Busch, Diageo, but also the Restaurant Association, Miller Coors, others. We're not an anti-alcohol group, but what we are emphatically is an anti-drunk driving group. And it's interesting because the responsible servers in the district and in the greater Washington area as a whole, responsible bartenders, responsible restaurant owners, believe it or not, it's often they who call for the sober ride service for their patrons. I mean, I think the number is easy to remember, 1-800-200-TAXI, but I suppose if you're in your cups, it may not be that easy, or as you were saying, to equate the numbers. And so, believe it or not, a restaurant owner will call and say, hey, buddy, I value your business. Here's a program you may not be familiar with. Let me make the call for you. Leave your car. Come back for the next day. And so they really serve as an emissary for this program.
Kurt, I really want to thank you for spending this entire hour. It is something that again, so resonates with me on many levels, and it has been that way for many, many years. And to Kent, who left us as a result of the drunk driver, this is for you, big guy. We'll be back in a moment.
What do you care about? We'll find out when the discussion continues.